From the nation's capital, the Conservative Caucus presents Conservative Roundtable, an in-depth look at today's most important issues.
Welcome to Conservative Roundtable. I'm Howard Phillips, chairman of the Conservative Caucus, which sponsors these broadcasts. Christmas is coming as we tape this, and you don't want coal in your stocking, but you may want it in your furnace. And our guest is Janet Gellici, who runs something called the American Coal Council, which is described as the preeminent business voice of the American coal industry. What role does coal play, Janet, in addressing America's energy needs?
A significant role. We're supplying over about 50% of the nation's electricity right at this point in time.
More than 50%?
More than 50%,
wow.
Right.
Is that right?
It is.
And how many states have coal mining?
We have about 23 states that currently are employing on the order of 130 to 150,000 people.
Wow.
Directly in coal mining jobs. Of course, there's about another 3 or 4 indirect jobs that are associated with that. But the fact that we've got coal located and mined in 23 states now means that we have a security of supply, so we can access it quite readily, which affords us additional energy security, national security.
Critics of the coal industry have, over the years, talked about strip mining as ravaging the environment and so forth. What do you say to them?
There are laws in place, strict laws that we have to abide by in terms of restoring the land. Oftentimes it's restored to even a better or more pristine condition than when we had originally started mining on it. So a lot of that is obviously regulated. Those regulations are adhered to. And we're obviously doing that any place that we're doing open cast mining.
People pay attention to coal most often when miners are trapped in an accident. And hardly a year goes by, it seems to me, correct me if I'm wrong, when there isn't at least one incident or accident where a shaft collapses or where the survival of miners is placed at risk. How is that problem being addressed? There's been criticism of some of the coal companies for not doing a better job of providing safety.
We have actually what is a tremendous safety record here in the United States on mine safety. And I will say, Howard, that even one loss of life is one too many in our industry, but certainly our record has been greatly improving. Before the unfortunate Sago accident that happened a number of years ago, we actually had our best year ever. There was 19 fatalities. That is a significant reduction in anything that we've ever had before. There is new legislation that was passed a couple of years ago, the Miner Act, that imposes new regulations and new restrictions on particularly underground coal mining. We're in the process of adhering to those regulations and adapting those regulations as we speak. So, again, any accident is one accident too many, but certainly improving.
What is the effect on coal miners' health of working in the mines?
There are some concerns, obviously, with some black lung issues. Again, those are regulated. Those are being taken care of via some of the regulations. Again, we've made some tremendous strides in making this an even safer industry. Compared with other countries, we are worlds and leagues ahead of any other nations.
And how many coal miners are there in the United States? People who actually go into the mines and dig the coal?
I don't know. Off the top of my head, I just don't know how many there are. Again, 120,000 at least directly employed in the industry.
What unionization issues are there?
Unionization issues primarily revolve around some of the safety concerns and making sure that people have the jobs. A lot of the jobs are non-union now. In fact, there's a lot of jobs that are even better paying jobs right now that are non-union.
United Mine Workers at one point was a very politically influential organization. It doesn't seem to be as influential today.
There are less folks that are involved in coal mining at this point in time. There's less folks that are involved in union mining. Again, a lot of those mines have either been idled or shut down. There's a tremendous expense, obviously, associated with keeping an underground mine going. The cost, the marketplace has to justify the expense of that. There's been a lot of a move towards Western coal mining. A lot of those mines are surface mines, and obviously those are less regulated, those are less union.
Tell us about your organization. When was it founded, and how is it distinguishable from other coal-related organizations?
Sure. Our organization was founded more than 25 years ago. What makes our organization unique is that we represent the full spectrum of the coal chain. I like to say everything from the hole in the ground to the plug in the wall. So we represent not just the coal producers, but also the industrial and utility consumers. We represent the railroads and ports and terminals. So we have 170 members that really span that full gamut. So their interests are all represented through our organization.
That must keep you pretty busy dealing with all 170.
It's like herding cats, quite frankly. So it gives us a nice, strong voice in terms of advocating for the industry, and that's our primary objective.
What issues are currently before Congress affecting the coal industry?
A number of them. Probably first and foremost is climate change issues and what we've got ahead with the incoming administration and the incoming Congress.
What did Obama say during the campaign? My superficial memory is that he basically indicated he wanted less coal mining. Is that a fair repetition?
Right. Actually, it's been a bit confusing because a lot of the published reports and a lot of the campaign statements focused on the fact that President-elect Obama acknowledged that we will need to use coal in this country in the foreseeable future. His admonition is that we do need to use it cleanly. And then we hear comments such as, the bankrupting the coal industry.
Joe Biden made some pretty silly comments, as I recall.
Yeah, his rope line comments were widely picked up and publicized, obviously. Again, I think some of those are qualified with some of the more published reports and campaign statements. And quite honestly, the reality of what will be able to get done, given that our reliance on coal in this nation right now, 50%, is significant. To replace that would require just a tremendous effort. Something on the order of 250 new nuclear plants would have to be built to replace coal.
How many private homes use coal? Do you have any number?
I don't, and it's funny because every time the energy prices go up, my phone starts ringing with people wanting to know where they can buy coal.
Is it readily available?
Not for home use, and again...
When did that change? I mentioned to you before the broadcast that when I was a young lad, my granddad was in the energy business. He was an immigrant to the United States, started with a gas station and wound up being the biggest energy provider in the North Shore of Massachusetts. And I recall going on the truck and delivering coal to private homes.
Right.
When did that stop?
I'm not sure when it stopped. Certainly when oil became part of the energy mix and that was actually cheaper, it was easier to deliver to folks, less logistics involved in the delivery of it. I think that's probably when we saw a decrease in the use of coal. My grandparents had coal-fired furnace in their home in New York City and coal chutes in the sidewalk. So, I think we all have those coal stories from our childhood. But
now, are there corporations, are there restaurants, are there other entities that serve the public that rely on coal for fuel?
What we would, I guess, like to see in the future is the transportation sector start to rely on coal. And this is something that is being done elsewhere in the world. There is a reliance, there is a conversion process where you can actually take coal and convert it into a transportation fuel, a diesel or a gasoline. That would help us significantly reduce our dependence on foreign oil and would take a huge step in our national security efforts.
Are some of the 170 organizations which employ you involved in that kind of research and development?
Yes, a number of the coal companies, there are individual developers that are out there trying to get some of these projects put in place. A lot of them are needing to sort out the carbon capture and storage component piece of this before they can go ahead with these projects. But
we're going to have to take a break. But when we come back, I'd be interested in your comments on how the whole debate about global warming and climate control and so forth affects the coal industry. Please stay with us. We'll be right back with Janet Gellici, the president of the American Coal Council, following these messages.
My name is Walter Jones. I represent the 3rd Congressional District in North Carolina, the home of Camp Lejeune Marine Base. And I'm pleased to be here today to encourage the American people to remember that their voices need to be heard by those of us in Washington, D.C., both the House side and the Senate side, that there are too many issues facing this country. There'll be a new president in 2009, and we need to let our voices be heard. From immigration issues to terrorism to the fact that this country's debt, we owe China over $900 billion. But I want those people that might be seeing this interview to know that we, the American people, with the help of God, we can change the direction of this nation. Just like the American people did on the issue of amnesty when it was before the Senate. They made telephone calls, they sent faxes, emails, and they wrote letters, and they said to the Senate, do not pass this amnesty bill, and it was killed.
Hi, I'm United States Representative Thaddeus McCotter from Michigan's 11th Congressional District. As we enter a new millennium of hope and peril, with so many problems besetting our country and yet so many opportunities before us, it is oftentimes tempting to think that your voice doesn't matter. What can one person do to make a difference in the life of their community and their country? Well, the first thing you can do is to contact your legislator. You are one of the sovereign citizens of the United States. You elect your servants to work for you in Congress. Let them know what you think. Send them a letter, send them an email, call them on the phone. Your voice matters, because if you don't raise your voice in the interest of our free republic, who will?
Welcome back. We're talking about coal. I'm Howard Phillips, chairman of the Conservative Caucus, and we're with Janet Gellici, who is the chief executive officer of the American Coal Council. Now, in looking over your resume, you've got some very interesting aspects to your background, and one of them is that you've been on the board of directors for the Women's Mining Coalition. Mm-hmm. And you're a member of the Women's Council on Energy and Environment. Does this deal with women who are miners?
Yes, actually women from the coal industry and hard rock mining industries who are involved in all facets. So whether they're mining or myself, for example, heading up a trade association, all facets.
Is the Hard Rock Cafe named after?
No, but I wish we had kind of coined that. We had.
If you had some stake in that, your profit level would go way up.
Right.
Now, you also served in an advisory role in the U.S. Department of Energy when Bill Richardson, our new Commerce Secretary, was Secretary of Energy.
Right.
What kinds of things did you do in that role?
Right. I'm still serving actually on the National Coal Council, and that's an advisory group to the Secretary of Energy, and we prepare reports for the Secretary based on their requirements of the Department of Energy if they're interested. You can look more recently, we've just completed a series of about 8 fact sheets as introductions to various aspects of the coal industry that we'll use to educate the incoming Congress and administration. So everything from the importance of energy, of coal to our energy mix, through some of the CO2 issues and how soon we'll be ready to actually address the carbon.
Who are the
management.
key players in the Senate and House with whom you must deal on energy issues?
Certainly, over the past year, the Warner-Lieberman bill has been important to us, and the analysis there, that issue coming down, obviously defeated on some of the cost issues that were associated with that. Dingell-Boucher bill.
How is Mr. Dingell's ouster as committee chairman going to affect your organization and your industry?
Right, there'll certainly be more of a challenge in terms of educating.
Mr. Waxman is a more difficult fellow.
Right, he's obviously taken a different position than Mr. Dingell has on.
Mr. Dingell has been industry friendly to most industries, and Mr. Waxman is more often a critic.
Right. Mr. Dingell has taken a very measured approach, I think, to the climate change issue. They've published 4 or 5 white papers. There's a draft bill that's been put out. It's been more of a fact-finding initiative to try and get people's response rather than just trying to force through a piece of legislation. So I think it's been a very nice, measured approach, very inclusive and cooperative.
What are your biggest worries about what Congress and or the executive branch might do on issues affecting your industry?
Right. I think on the climate change issue, one of our primary concerns right now is having not legislation, but regulation come down through the EPA. EPA recently came out with an advance notice of proposed rulemaking, investigating how they might regulate CO2 emissions under the Clean Air Act. This is entirely an inappropriate vehicle. It's going to be very costly. It's very bureaucratically heavy. It's going to wind up regulating everything from locomotives all the way through lawnmowers. So it's going to be a very cumbersome process.
Clean Air Act came in under Nixon, if I recall.
I think it actually came in before that.
Did it?
Under, yeah.
Well, EPA was established under Nixon.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
What burdens does the Clean Air Act impose on your industry?
Well, it's a regulatory process. So the market conditions, allowing the marketplace to kind of take a role in putting in place control mechanisms are not possible under Clean Air Act mechanisms. EPA has stated that they would like to have market-driven approaches, but really something like a cap-and-trade program is not possible under the Clean Air Act. It's not possible to put in place economic or financial incentives under the Clean Air Act to put in place some of the technologies we need for clean coal.
Well, under President Bush, we did not embrace Kyoto. Bill Clinton was moving in that direction. My hunch is that Barack Obama will move in that direction. There are countries elsewhere in the world which have embraced Kyoto, and how has that affected the coal industry in those countries?
Right. We quite interestingly enough, the GAO just came out with a report today on how the Kyoto Protocol is the success of the Kyoto Protocol in European nations. And what we're finding is that some of those systems are not working. There are emissions continue to go up. A lot of the countries in Europe now are going back to coal-based generation, largely in response to the increasing costs that are resulting from some of the requirements.
Now, has this, what role has Brussels played, the control factor in the European Union, as opposed to the role of individual state governments, nation governments?
There are mechanisms that have been put in place, and I think if one thing that we can take away from the Kyoto experience in Europe, there are a lot of lessons to be learned. President-elect Obama is proposing under his his carbon capture or climate legislation proposals that we actually auction off all of the allowances. That has not proven to be very successful in European countries. What has been successful is the fact that a number of the allowances were given away. And what that's done is prevent any leakage, any companies or industries from moving into places that aren't regulated by the Clean Air.
Well, we are very fortunate, and the people of Europe are fortunate, that beginning in January, Václav Klaus, the president of the Czech Republic, is the new head of the European Union on a rotating basis. He's one of, in my opinion, one of the wisest men in the world, and he is one of the leading critics of the myths of climate control and global warming, and he's had the courage to take these stands in the face of considerable criticism. And I think that our developing a relationship, and your industry developing a relationship with Václav Klaus and sharing his wisdom with the United States may be beneficial if we can get him to testify at the right time before congressional committees or make appearances or well-covered speeches. I've had the privilege of having him speak to a group that I brought to his country a number of years ago, and I've heard him speak in the United States in his various visits. He's one of the greatest men walking on the face of the earth, and the timing is just wonderful. What a counterpoint that will be to dangerous excesses on the part of the Obama administration.
Certainly has been a voice of reason on this issue, and one that's presenting some cautionary notes. Let's take a look at what the expenses are, what the costs of putting these things in place are. You know, bankrupting our economy, bankrupting the coal industry is not going to help us in terms of our national economic objectives, our energy security objectives, and our environmental objectives.
And are there significant disagreements among your 170 constituents about where emphasis should be placed or what priorities should be forthcoming? Or is it really a question of common denominator activity and thinking?
I'll tell you what I think the consensus point is, and also a consensus point that I think we can come to work cooperatively with the incoming administration is on the need for investment in clean coal technologies to put those dollars that we need into the development of carbon capture and sequestration technologies. We're talking on the order of $18 to $20 billion that needs to be invested in this type of technology if we're going to make a dent at all in meeting some of our environmental objectives and to keep coal in the mix. And coal needs to remain in the mix because it's one of the most affordable energy resources that we have.
Are the big three auto manufacturers in the United States participating in research that would lead to the use of coal for automobile fuel?
The automakers are looking down the road at plug-in hybrid electric vehicles. And
ignoring coal.
They're going to need coal generation to power these things. That's just, you know, the bottom line. We're going to need to have that electricity to plug those cars into.
We're going to take a break, and when we come back, our guest will have some concluding comments, which you may find to be very interesting, and you'll also learn how you can obtain additional information about coal, concerning which your appetite may have been whetted by this discussion. Please stay with us. There are many conservative organizations, but the Conservative Caucus is unique in that our standard for evaluating public policy is the Constitution of the United States. Our goal is to advocate policies which conform to what the Constitution stipulates and to oppose those which undermine the Constitution. It's clear that the federal government has only those powers which are provided in the Constitution, which were initially delegated by the states to the federal government or which were subsequently added by amendment. If we adhered to that principle, your taxes would be lower and your liberties would be more secure.
The Conservative Caucus, www.conservativeusa.org or 703-938-9626.
There is a better way to have fun with history. Visit americaslibrary.gov. Log on, play around, learn something.
come on. You're going to tell me that buying one imported towel is going to cost someone their job?
Ever tried shopping for clothes with a 4-year-old? I can't be looking for where the stuff is made.
Since 1980, nearly 500,000 Americans who make apparel and home fashions have lost their jobs, even though the quality of our products is second to none, which makes you wonder if it's foreign competition that's hurting us.
So the shirt's imported. Who's it gonna hurt?
Or if it's us that's hurting us. Buy American, and Americans work.
Welcome back. If you're interested in the kinds of issues we discuss on Conservative Roundtable, please check out the website of the Conservative Caucus, www.conservativeusa.org. If you want us to send you materials free of charge, please fax them to us at 703-281-4108. Janet, it's been such a pleasure having you as a guest. How do people get in touch with you?
Thank you so much. They can reach us on our website, americancoalcouncil.org. Hopefully there's some good information on the coal industry and our current issues there.
And if they contact you, you've probably got some publications that could enhance their knowledge of your industry.
Right. We've got some magazines, some fact sheets on the industry on some of our key issues, so we'd be happy to share those.
Well, this is a critical time, and you're in a critical place. Coal must play an important part in addressing the energy needs of our country. The price of gas may go up and down, and home heating costs may go up and down, but as you have pointed out so eloquently, coal provides more than half of the energy to meet the basic needs of our country's electrical systems and so forth. And before we get nuclear power, we need that coal.
Absolutely, and it does so on a very affordable basis, and I think in an increasingly clean manner. So it's obviously going to cost us quite a bit to get some of the climate change legislation and controls put in place, and we really need to balance that with what's going on with our economic situation right now, and I believe coal can help there.
Well, thank you very much for joining us on this edition of Conservative Roundtable. Please tell your friends about Conservative Roundtable and where they can find it, where you live. We're on television all over the United States of America. And Janet, I wish you well in your endeavors, and thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
We appreciate it.